Evening, friends and family of the UNC, my colleagues, some of them are here with us tonight, others listening, tuned in to this virtual meeting. Good evening to all of you, and I think Anil already wake up the place, so let's give Anil a... Anil had us all going, but he's half Tobagonian, so he has a right to speak in that regard, but he's also a Trinbagonian. He has that right to speak as well. So good night, thanks for joining us. And we are at a very critical time in our history. Our party, your party, the People's Party, is committed to serving people. We will always fight for democracy, fight for freedom, fight for rights of all our citizens, and I say here all. I'm talking about the citizens who are home here, and I'm talking about the ones who have been abandoned and are stranded overseas. All citizens, we will fight for you. We will fight for your rights. That's why these virtual meetings are so important, because the government has shut down the parliament. They've gone on a recess, the longest recess ever over the Christmas break. Parliament was supposed to convene on this Friday. The fourth Friday in every month is Private Members' Day. And you know we have filed a motion of no confidence, a private motion, in Minister of National Security, Stuart Young. So they're ducking the Parliament, not convening the Parliament. They wait until after the election results come out on Monday, when by rights under our standing orders, that private motion against Stuart Young would have been debated in the Parliament on Friday of this week. Fourth Friday of every month. 1 day in each month is given for the opposition to file motions of these kinds. So, look, Stuart, whether we do it this Friday, we do it next Friday, whichever way we do it is licks coming for you, because you're the most incompetent Minister of National Security we've ever had. So if you think you have escaped, you have not. You will have to come to Parliament and you will have to explain to people why it is that you are acting illegally, shutting down the rights of every citizen that you have stranded abroad. It is a right at common law. It is a right under the Immigration Act. It is a right of any citizen to enter into their country. And that is why we saw, whilst we were locking out our nationals, you were busy inviting and bringing here Delcy Rodriguez and her crew. Brought them into the country immediately after you lock it down. What exemption did she get? What criteria did you use? You shut the borders and you use a Regulation 10. The COVID regulations, they've been repeating them. I think we now reached 30-something. But Regulation 10, each time, has to do with the seaports and airports being closed. And the only way that you can come, you have to get the permission of the Minister of National Security. I will speak more of that. I don't want to be in a court of law at the moment, but you have acted totally unlawfully. The Minister of Health, first of all. Those regulations are made in his name. He signs them. And that Regulation 10 is totally illegal. Totally illegal. To use the public health ordinance to make regulations to stop citizens returning. And I want to clarify, we are not talking about opening the borders for the world. We are talking about bringing our nationals home. So whilst you let Delcy in here, we had our children in Barbados, stranded in Barbados, they couldn't come home. The Bajans had to give us a licking, a real tongue licking. Tap up Stuart Young in every which way. They couldn't bring our citizens from Barbados. Whilst it is the UK and the US and so on, they were sending planes, aircraft to pick up their citizens to take them home. They have some of the highest rates of COVID, but they made sure to take care of their citizens, because the right at common law, which is a right we inherited long before we had a written constitution, a common law right that every citizen must be allowed to enter into the country. You could have a pandemic. You could have whatever it is. You can only block out your citizens if you go to the Parliament to change that law. to change the common law, to change the constitutional rights of citizens. You haven't done that. Instead, you have the Minister of Health signing a piece of paper saying, shut down the borders, nobody can come in unless Stuart Young gives them that exemption. And I'll talk a little bit about that because we have to bring our citizens home. Each day we hear the stories, we read of the stories, the harrowing experiences, horrible experiences our citizens are facing in foreign lands. And there is no compassion. When we talked about you're granting these exemptions, you're doing it, no equity, no equality, inequality of treatment, that some could come and some can't come. And as I said, things get so bad that even a dog had more rights than our citizens. Dog could get an exemption to come in. So I'll deal with Stuart Young on those issues in the Parliament on another day. So, talking about Tobago. I really had no intention to get into the whatever is happening there, but I think you've put me there, you put me in the middle there. You're putting up posters with my face on it. I know I have a good-looking face, eh? So I don't mind you put up the posters wherever you're putting them up. But listen, the UNC is not contesting the Tobago elections. Alice spoke a bit about it. We are not contesting, but we're very concerned for the people of Trinidad and the people of Tobago. We did so much, and Anil mentioned earlier, we brought the self-government bill to the Parliament. You know why it wasn't passed in my term? Because Rowley, as the opposition leader, and all the PNM MPs voted against self-government for Tobago. They voted against it. And it was a Pandey government, the UNC government, that created the Tobago House of Assembly in the first place. That was done on a Pandey. So I agree with Anil, what have you done for the people of Tobago? What have you done? And now this rope. Just every rope has an end there. But this rope is not ending. Because whilst I'm coming here tonight, I heard on the news that the rope, it wasn't just 2.5 million. Farley, the PDP man, shared, on a platform maybe or somebody shared, that it is $3.5 million for this piece of rope. 3.5 million. You know, the THA, for almost a decade, they have failed to comply with the law to file Auditor General reports. They haven't filed anything. So when Anil talks about the $32 billion over the years they've spent, they cannot account for where and how they spent it. And that is why the corruption issues in Tobago. And Ms. Tracy, stop calling my name. Don't put my name in your business. Explain to the people of Tobago that 3.5 million piece of rope. Explain why it is you all did not file Auditor General's reports. Explain all the other issues of millions being spent, but no reports being filed, no accountability, no transparency. That's what you have to answer. Don't think that you can use my face to frighten people. Boy, when people see my face, they smile because I'm a smiling person. Putting up my face on a poster with the PDP people, that's not going to get you to win, you know. It is back to desperate measures, getting back to Calcutta ship all over again. But people are wiser and smarter. People are wiser and smarter. They're seeing the games of what they are. You all cannot explain the corruption in Tobago under the PNM. So what do? You pull the UNC into it. We are not in your business there. Explain the corruption issues in Tobago for the people of Tobago. And I urge the people of Tobago, come out and vote out Rowley. Vote him out. That's what Anil said tonight. And yes, what is my relationship with Watsonuk? My relationship with Watsonuk is that with every other citizen of our land. We are nationals of Trinidad and Tobago. That is my relationship. We have no political relationship. I make that very clear tonight. We have no political relationship. And I want to know where you're getting money to print posters with my face. Because it's not Watson Duke and the PDP doing that. It has to be the PNM. The UNC is not contesting in Tobago. The only party in Tobago that takes instructions from Trinidad is the PNM. The only party in Tobago that takes instructions from Trinidad is the PNM. PDP takes no instructions from the UNC. They are contesting, they're fighting, they're Tobagonians, they're entitled to fight for what they see as the right thing. So, spend money on my face, fine, that's okay. But I want the people of Tobago to understand when you vote, you're voting for your rights, and that is your democratic right to cast your votes wherever you may. Don't let them chase your brain. Don't let them chase you up. What they will just chain you up into believing something that is so totally false. And today I want to talk about PNM's 3. Guardian Media. Guardian Media, you know, I don't speak about the media, but this is going too far now. They print this long story about the same posters and calling the PRO of the UNC to find out why his party putting up posters in Tobago. So these are the posters, and it's so obvious to everyone what they're doing, but Guardian Media wants to chase our brains and chain us up to ask us why we put in posters in Tobago. You probably read the story today. Everybody knows, everybody sees that for what it is. A desperate bid, an attempt by the PNM, because they are probably worried about losing seats in that THA election. Why else would you resort to that? I would go back from there. Let's talk about other things happening in our country. And I said we filed a motion of no confidence. I tell you more. Some people are saying, well, why did you go to court about this matter? Yes, we have matters in court. There are matters challenging these regulations in the court. But that process takes time. By the time you get a judgment, that will go all the way to the Privy Council. But what we have as parliamentarians, we are the loyal opposition of Trinidad and Tobago. We've been elected by the people. We've been elected. We are elected representatives, and we have a duty. And the government has a duty to explain their actions. The government has a duty to tell people what is happening. As I said, they shut the parliament down willy-nilly as they see fit. So when we took the decision to proceed with a vote of no confidence, we were fully aware that their numbers are more than ours. And listen, when they stay away from that parliament, we are just, what, 2 or 3? Very, very close race there. That means they have to come to parliament to vote. They will have to come to get the majority of the votes. So we are fully cognizant, we were fully aware that we did not have the majority of the votes in the parliament. But that's not a reason to stop us from doing what is our duty as a loyal opposition. So we were very well aware that without the numbers in the House, the vote will go against us. We are also very much aware we could not let that stop us from using whatever mechanism was available to bring the fight on behalf of our brothers and sisters stranded out there. Stranded there, that is our duty to bring it into the parliament. Let the parliament record Hansard. Show what this wicked and incompetent government has been doing. That is where we go. And when we talk to you from the parliament, we talk to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, to the nation. So this matter will go down in the Hansard as a record of history of the illegality that the PNM is proceeding with. So you just go to court and wait what? By the time you get a hearing, what? When? This year? Next year? By the time you go up to the Court of Appeal, this year, next year? By the time you finish, 5 years gone, you know. By the time you reach the Privy Council. Because judgments in this regard, this government, that AG who loses cases every week, he will not leave it alone. Should we win in the lower courts here, he will take it up. He will take it up. So we're not going to get this matter ventilated publicly unless we use the House of the People, which is a House of Representatives. So we will fight inside that house. We will force them to answer. And I see they're posting up something on Facebook, posting up thing, wear red, in support of MP Young, wear red. So I don't know if they want you to put on your red and come outside the parliament, forgetting that it is COVID, because we are inside the parliament. They've spaced us out. They've shortened our speaking time. Let's see if they intend to bring up a red brigade outside the parliament to show support for Stuart Young on whichever day they decide to debate this motion of no confidence. So there it is. We have to make them explain. And those abroad, missing, stranded abroad, trapped by this failed policy, friends and family first, to force them to account for decisions that stranded and abandoned our citizens. That's not the only remedy, the courthouse. That's one. But the court of public opinion is higher than any other court. Some are asking, as I said, why we didn't go to the courts for constitutional review, for judicial review, and so on. I'm telling you, those matters are before the court. Some have accused us of why we wait so long. Why did we wait so long to call for our citizens to come home? And I want to make it clear, I'm not saying open the borders, I'm saying bring home. Let your citizens come home. Let our nationals come home. That's what we need to do. So we waited too long. I want to remind you, before the August elections, from this same virtual platform, I made it very clear that our priority would be, should we win that election, to bring our nationals home. So we are not just falling back and going, no, why no? Why didn't do it before? We made that commitment. The rest is history, as you know. So we stood strong then. We will stand even stronger now. I want to give you assurance we will not rest. We will not rest on this issue until all nationals are allowed to come home. You have our word on that. The UNC will take this fight strongly, and we will stand up for you. It really pains me. Can you imagine? Oh, going on 10 months now? Going into a year by March, people are locked out. Can you imagine? Just think if it's your loved one, think if it's your child, think if it's your mother, if it's your father. Take a minute and just think about it. That you can't see them, you can't hear them, and next thing you know, one of them might pass away whilst they're abroad, as has happened. As has happened. You remember when the British MP, member of Parliament in Britain, went to the Parliament there to make a plea for Trinis to be allowed to come home. Well, they say, oh, that British MP boy, he looked like a UNC. Blame Kamla again. And you know, the person he spoke about, a gentleman died, an elderly gentleman died, and that gentleman was staying by a relative in that MP's constituency. I wonder if you all recall that. So think of it. Can you imagine? I mean, for almost, as I said, 10 months you're not seeing your husband or your wife. You're not seeing your son or your daughter or a parent. Does this government even think about that? No, they don't. Because when he wanted to see his daughter, she came home. Faris's son came home, that was okay, and I'm happy. I am happy for all those who were able to come home. I'm happy for all those who were able to travel and come back. I'm happy for them. But think about all the other thousands who don't have that facility. And even though it is an illegal regulation, they're being illegally detained outside. It's a kind of exile. You know, it's like you've exiled your citizens. You've exiled them in another country, a foreign country. And they don't care. They don't even think about it. So we will deal with it frontally. In the courts, it's being dealt with, and the Parliament, the highest court in the land, is the People's Parliament. We will deal with there as well. So whilst we are here talking about matters, there's a matter that's troubling me. You know, I read in the newspapers, I think Taka just showed me a copy of the article, where it is that the NIB is, well, had given loans. And that within this period, over the last week or two newspaper reports have come out in the Express, indicating that these loans that the NIB and others had given to these companies, that they had to defer the interest payments and so on, because the companies couldn't pay. And I set my mind to thinking, you know, what's going on with the NIB? The NIB, established by the National Insurance Act, first of all, provides for a National Insurance Board, okay? Section 3 of that Act. Section 8 of that Act says it is the duty of the board to operate and manage the system of national insurance. Okay, we know that NIS, we talk about NIS. And then we get to Section 13 of the National Insurance Act. And it says, it creates a mandatory, not a discretionary power. It mandates that the NIB has a statutory duty to file something called an annual report. They must make that report June 30th. They have 3 months within that period, June 30th, take us up to June, July, August, September 30. 3 months to prepare a report of its work for the past financial year. And then when they make that report, they have to give it to the minister, who is the Minister of Finance. And then the law further says, when the minister gets it, within 2 months, he must lay it in the Parliament. He must lay it in the Parliament. Why is that important? It is important because we get to know what's happening at the NIB, National Insurance Board. We get to see how many people have lost jobs or how many people have gained jobs, because if you see the number of persons contributed to NIS, if it increases, then it means more people have jobs. If that number decreases, it means more people have lost their jobs, and we know more people have lost their jobs. So no report has been filed for the 2019 year of the NIB, and no report has been filed for 2020. The latest that that report has to be made and filed in the Parliament is the end of November. So end of November 2019 has gone, we have no report. The end of November 2020 has gone, no report. For 2 straight years, no reports. But you will recall in 2018, when I was contributing to the budget debate, the minister and this government has been hiding unemployment data. The CSO has not given any data for years as well of how many people do not have jobs. So I took the NIB 2018 report and was able to show that 60,000 persons, just over 60,000 persons, being only those who would have been paying NIS, 60,000 persons had disappeared. 60,000 less people paying NIS, which means that they had lost their jobs. They were no longer contributing to the NIS scheme. Since then, they have not filed a single report. The minister is hiding the data in the NIB report. And I remember I asked about this before, and Persad in the Parliament, he said something about, well, they made some mistakes in it, I have to correct it. But the law is very clear. The minister cannot instruct the NIB what to do or not to do. The minister cannot correct anything in the NIB report. When he gets it, his only duty with that report in terms of the Parliament, file it in Parliament, lay it in the Parliament, no later than the 30th of November of each year. 2 reports gone. And so we look at what's happening with this. We look at what the report is supposed to have. I mentioned contributors, meaning people pay NIS. We will have, as I say, we had 60,000 less as of 2018. Now with 19 and the COVID in 2020, we really need to know what's happening. The report should also tell you about investments. Section 13 of the Act tells you what that report must have. Number of contributors and beneficiaries. So the amount of persons paid into NIS and the amount of people benefiting from the NIS because you pay all these payments. Contribution income collected. Fixed expenditure incurred for administration of the system. Composition of the investment portfolio. That's what that article set me thinking, because that's what we'll find out. We'll find out where the NIB has invested your money. That's your money. Taxpayers' money. You pay the NIS. Where has that money gone? No report, we can't tell, but we are seeing 2 newspaper reports recently talking about the NIB lending people money. And then when they lent it to them, the people can't pay the money. Can't pay the money. So the NIB now has to give them a deferral, reduce the interest rates. Why is the NIB doing that? We need to know what the report says about the investment portfolio of the NIB. It also tells us about the yield on investments. So obviously in that particular investment, the loan that they gave to these 2 companies, they're getting back less money. Why is he hiding the report? The report also tells us a statement of any financial or commercial arrangement with subsidiaries or associated companies. All of that has been hidden from us. We don't have it. So the NIB, he told us last year something about the NIB, which again has us very worried. You remember in the budget debate, Imber told the country he wants to increase the retirement age to what? To 65. So is the NIB, is there money in dire straits? We don't know because we have had no reports for 2 years. Is it a sustainable fund that they have to allow the NIB to continue paying people. And why you want to go to 65? Because then you won't have to pay no pensions, no NIS pensions. 5 more years you want people to work. So we need to see that report. This is what Imbert said October 2020 when he was delivering a budget statement about the NIB. Madam Speaker, we are ensuring that our national institutional mix remains resilient and capable of meeting the demands of a modern economy. We will ensure that the NIB remains able to provide our citizens with income security for various needs, including retirement, maternity, employment, injury, and funeral expenses, with expenditure on benefits now exceeding contribution income. This is just his bold statement. With expenditure on benefits now exceeding contribution income. In other words, what you're getting is less than what they're paying out. So what is the status of this? This is your pension money, your maternity leave money, employment, injury benefits. This is where it comes from, that NIB, National Insurance Board. So what is the status of it? Why are you hiding the report, Minister Imbert? The next step I'm taking, I'm going to drop a pre-action letter on you and take this matter to court to force you to file the reports, because this is statutory. This is not whether you feel to do it or don't feel to do it, or you don't like the report or you like the report. This is your statutory duty under the law of Trinidad and Tobago. So that empty statement the minister made, what does it really mean? The statement only reported situation is dire because expenditure exceeding income. You know what happens when your expenditure exceeds your income? You go bankrupt. You go bankrupt. So we need to find out what is happening there. So the number of contributors, the beneficiaries in the scheme, we could see that. The contribution income collected, we have seen, of course, the last report came before Petrotrin was closed down. The last time Petrotrin paid NIS benefits was $86 million. You've closed it down, so we've lost that $86 million that the Petrotrin employees would have contributed to the fund each year. In that same year, 2018, because the NIB report is at June 30th, 2018, Petrotrin had closed down, when was it? Later in the year. So for those years, again, loss of income. The composition and the investment portfolio and the yield on investments, we don't know. Is it again you have friends and family? Is it that your friends and your family and your finances are the ones who are benefiting from NIB investments, loans from the NIB? We need to know what is the composition of the investment portfolio. So the two newspaper articles spoke about, they talked about it as investments, but those investments were in fact loans given to 2 different companies. I will not name them now. In due course, we can do that. But what I wanted to see is to get that NIB report, and Minister Imbert must tell us why he's hiding that report, because this is going to affect your retirement money, the retirement money of so many citizens who contribute to the NIS. I mentioned it before, when you go on maternity leave, you get NIS. When you get injured, you get NIS. When you retire, you get NIS. When you take maternity leave, you get NIS because you were contributing, you were paying us your money. This is not the money of the PNM and their finances and their friends. This is your money. Minister Imbert, again, I call upon you to file the reports, failing which we shall take you to court to get an order of mandamus to force you to file the reports in the Parliament. So there we are on NIB, NIS, and it's really troubling because I saw a report, another report where Valmiki Arjun, the economist, said that we are in really serious financial and economic difficulties at this time, that we are walking into a debt trap, and that's debt with D-E-B-T, because of the huge number of borrowings, that we're in a place where it is unsustainable because you have to pay back so much in money that you've borrowed, and you have no new ways, no new opportunities to create jobs and to create what? Revenue. Nothing to create revenue. except to borrow, 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 and spend, spend, spend. So after I was listening to a little Facebook post today, somebody sent it to me, a gentleman in Tobago, by the way, and he's talking about, he says, before the election, we hear good things. And by the way, what has happened to Petrotrin? Remember, the man who was supposed to get it, Roget, has now become Roget. Did not get. Didn't get. What has happened to Petrotrin? You shut it down. After the Prime Minister told the nation on national TV, the government is not closing down Petrotrin. Lied. The government is not closing down Petrotrin. The man lied, brass face, bold face. If you believe that man, government, somebody came from Mars and shut down Petrotrin. Government not closing down Petrotrin, whop. And in case you were opening your fridge door, closing your fridge door, whop, take that. The government is not closing down Petrotrin. They shut it down. They came to the Parliament, and that was like a big, they were like thumping the desk and rejoicing. Came to Parliament to announce that they're giving this thing or selling it to the man who didn't get. Selling it to the OWTU. Years later, what is the status of that matter? What has happened? You close down the Petrotrin, and now it's scrap iron. The refinery has become a place for scrap iron. I mean, one of the oldest oil industries in the world. We were amongst the first. It was something to be proud of. And for those of us, whether you live north or south, once you pass along that road, you would see the flame, the flare. You would see that flare. It was a landmark. It was something to be proud of. Now when you pass along there, you watch what's going on. Places like a scrap heap. Scrap metal, that's all that this has become. And not a word from this government. So I was telling you about the man in Tobago and talking about this government. He said before elections, everything was great. Once election done, they started to talk about privatizing every part of the world. The port, the gas stations, everything to go. So he's saying, no, you know what? You see, after that the TH election on Monday, listen, they told us about WASA. They told us they were going to raise prices. They told us about laying off jobs. He said, wait until after Monday the 25th. Is then the PNM coming to privatize everything? Yes, and then more job losses to come. And I believe that because that's how they operate. Last year, before the election, they were up and down all over the country giving out food cards. You all remember? They were up and down giving out hampers. We were doing it too. So what has happened now? No hampers again. Elections finished. No hampers. People stop eating. How come Minister of Social Development, whoever they were, they gave MPs, they gave us about 100 hampers to give out to children for the school feeding program. But also for persons who had lost their support, had lost their jobs. After elections, all that done, stopped. Stopped. And COVID is still here. And the job losses continue to pile up. But the government has no care, no heart. So you see, after Monday, if you think things bad now, wait till after the 25th. Because in their view, they have no election again for another 2 years. The next local will come up. So it's going to be more pressure. We are going to see in the future more pressure from this government. We will see, for example, the property tax. Don't forget, Don't forget they're coming to you for that property tax. Okay? We are seeing issues happening with food shortage and food prices rising. Food prices rising. One big supermarket owner in a newspaper recently talked about they think that food prices could rise by about 35%. 35%. So even if shelves have food, because they don't have the forex to import the food, even if you do get some on the shelf, you're not going to be able to pay for it. What is government doing? I call on government. Take the VAT off the foods. Take the VAT off the foods. We had done it before and we didn't bankrupt the country. But at least people would get that 12.5% off of food items. We had done about 7,000 food items that we took the VAT off. Rowley come and he do a 6 for a 9. He says, okay, we are going to reduce the VAT from 15%. We'll bring it down to 12.5, but then what did he do? He increased the number of items on which you had to pay VAT, which have been some of those that we had in all those food items that we had taken the VAT off. So we're going to get really bad problems with food shortages and food prices going up. And whilst that is happening, do you know, they've done nothing about agriculture. You complain every time you don't have forex because look at how much food we have to import, $6 billion worth of food. And for some people who don't understand, when they say cereals, they think it's cornflakes you buy, you know. When they tell you how much millions and billions they spend, the country spends on imported cereal. Wake up. It's not breakfast cereal we're talking about. You're talking about rice. You're talking about rice. I heard on the radio again come in, they're talking about some rice in Moruga. There's some breed of rice that is growing there. Why don't we spend some money and get the agriculture going? They talked about $500 million in the budget for agriculture. What has been done? That was since October. We are into middle of January, going to the end of January. Which farmer has gained any benefit from that $500 million? And when we raised it in the parliament, it was like a big joke. Because they talked about it. Ravi Rataram is the shadow for agriculture. They talked about it and we couldn't find it anywhere. And then we had to find it where? On the Ministry of Finance. The $500 million they said also agriculture didn't go in the agriculture ministry. They put it on the Minister Imbert's Ministry of Finance. So under this government, the contribution of the agricultural sector to GDP fell by over $200 million in real terms. So it was 1.5 billion when we were there, and they've gone down now to $1.2 billion. That is from agriculture. What are we doing? We can't feed ourselves, but we are not investing in agriculture. So we talk about food shortages, we talk about high food prices, but doing absolutely nothing about it. Nothing. All this government is doing, as I said, borrow, spend, raid HSF. That's where they're going again. That's the next stop because there's nothing they have done to increase revenue collection. Nothing. So more taxes to come, more rising prices for basic utilities and so on, electricity, the water, that is to come. Higher utility rates, higher rates for basic services at the corporations. And Jalen would have told you how the PNM went into Napuna Corporation and tried to increase some fees for certain services. I think they want to do it in Chaguanas as well, Mayor. Down at Kuva Tabaki, don't try it. Don't do it. Where we have control of the corporation, even where we don't, we will not, in these very deadly times, try to tax citizens more, charge them more fees. So they want to charge more for the cemetery or the cremation site and other basic services that the corporations provide. Therefore, I'm saying to you, look, vote for the UNC on Monday, 25th, in the 5 corporations, in 5 seats. We ask you to vote for the UNC. Let us get this wicked PNM out, even if it's 1 seat by a time, at a time. Let's work in these 5 seats because we're going to see the infrastructure deteriorating even further. We see higher transport costs, as experts have predicted, increased costs of fuel at the pump. We'll see higher crime. We have a worsening ease of doing business index, which will cause further contraction of the economy, and more unemployment in the traditional state sector. Already, you may or may not know, unemployment is over 400% higher. Unemployment, not employment. Unemployment, no jobs, is 400% higher now than it was when we demented office in 2015. 400% higher now than in 2015. And I can give you where I got that from. It's from the Review of the Economy, 2020-page Review of the Economy, which is Imbert's document, 2020, page 89. 400% higher unemployment. As I close, I want to urge you again, our 5 candidates, Alice Glen, Hollywood, Arima Central, Hindustan, St. Mary's, and one more. Kudupia, how can I forget Kudupia? In all these seats, please come out, put your X next to the rising sun. We have 2 of those seats already. We hold 2, the Hindustan St. Mary and the Kudupia. Let's try and win the others. I know the teams are working really hard. I want to congratulate the candidates and their teams in each of these electoral districts. I want to wish you the best of luck next Monday, the 25th, and let's make sure and pull out every vote to be cast for the rising sun. God bless, and I thank you very much.